Today we are doing 2-1, basic functions and their graphs, day 2. Your learning goal is that you will be able to graph functions, use the vertical line test, and obtain information from graphs. So let's first go over graphing functions. And you may need graph paper for this. They're going to tell you which values to plug in to get your y coordinates, and then you'll just graph those functions. So this is the function that we're graphing, f of x equals 2x plus 4, and usually we'll use -2 to 2. If you have a graphing calculator, the graphing is going to make it easier because your table actually, if you go to table, and it'll actually give you your y coordinates that you use to plot the points. So plugging in -2 if you don't have a calculator. These are the values. Excuse me. These are the values. And then you'll take those points and you'll just graph them. And I'll just count by 2s. And then you just plot the points. And if it's linear, you know, it'll make a straight line like this. And you're going to see different graphs that you'll actually be graphing, just to remind you. Of the shapes. I'll do it on the next screen. So we have absolute values. Graphs, remember, are V's. V shape. We have, if you see, like cubes. Well, let's start with the square. You know, that's a parabola. That's a U shape. And the cubes have this S-looking shape. And then you have square roots that actually start at one point and do a curve like this. So it's not a continuous graph. And then you have, of course, constant graphs, what we call them, where it just equals a number. Those are horizontal lines. So those are the most common that you'll see. Okay, so far we've been looking at relations and equations to determine if they are functions, but you can also use what is called the vertical line test to see if a graph is a function. And so I'm going to give you some graphs. And the way that it works is you're going to take a vertical line, such as your pencil, and roll it across your graph, and something like this. And what you're trying to check to see if it intersects your graph in more than one point, like here and here, that means that it's sharing a x value, and it means this is not a function. So it has to intersect in more than one point. So that one's okay. This one's okay. And this one is not. So this is a function, function, and this is not a function. Okay, so a lot of standardized tests that you're going to see will have you interpreting graphs and getting information from graphs. So that's what we're about to do here. So we're going to use this graph to find various values. Such as f of 2, f of negative 4, and f of negative 1. So what that means, remember, x, the 2, is your input. So you look on your graph to where x is 2, and you want the y value that corresponds to it, which is negative 4. And then part B says when x is negative 4, so that's right there, you want the y value that corresponds to it, which is 4. And when x is negative 1, which is right here, my y value is 0. So you just have to be able to interpret the graph. And we'll do another one. Okay, we'll look at this last example because if you notice on both ends of your graph, we have arrows. So when we're looking for f of 2, actually, that's supposed to be a g. G of 2. We look on our graph when x is 2, which is right here. My y value is negative 2. And then for part B, when x is 10, which would be all the way over here. We don't see it actually on the graph, but this arrow means it's going to go on forever. So anything bigger than 3, no matter what, our x value would be negative 2. Okay? And then part C, for what value of x is g of x negative 1? So they're going backwards now. They're now giving us the y value, which is negative 1. So this is y. And we're going to go over to our graph to find negative 1. And if you notice, if you go up to your graph, x is positive 1. So you'll just write x equals 1. And you're done.